Welcome to Potentiality, a space for big questions, deep conversations, and a shared wisdom around the most meaningful thing we do as human beings, which is how we parent and educate the next generation. I am delighted to introduce our guest today, Tanja Golubić, an elected public official, educator, and forest bathing practitioner from Daruvar, Croatia. As Deputy County Prefect of the Bjelovar-Bilogora County, representing the Czech national minority, Tanya holds civic responsibility for real communities and real lives, and she has chosen to bring into that public role something most institutions have not yet had the courage to name: the healing power of the natural world. Through her deep engagement with Shinrin-yoku, the Japanese practice of forest bathing, she guides children, parents, and communities back into a relationship with nature that is intentional, embodied, and genuinely restorative. Welcome, Tanya. I have been really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for inviting me. I'm so happy that I'm here in your fantastic podcast. And I'm happy to speak about one of my favorite topics, and that is nature, and nature as healer, and also nature as teacher.
Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to this conversation and the depth that you bring in a very unique way to your role, particularly as a civic servant. So I really want to start by asking you about the practice itself, just so our audience understands what is it that we're going to talk about today. So we're talking about Shinrin-yoku, that translates from Japanese simply as forest bathing. And yet what it points to is anything but simple. It's a practice, it's a philosophy, a homecoming of sorts. And I want to begin with you explaining what the practice is, because I feel like some of our listeners might not be familiar with it. So please take us into the understanding what the practice is. But even more importantly, Tanya, I really want to know your story behind it. How did forest bathing find you?
Yeah. So, forest bathing is slow, mindful walk in forests or another natural area. It's not hiking, it's not sport, it's not about reaching some point or destination. The focus is rather on being in nature than doing. So, forest bathing means immersing ourselves in the atmosphere of the forest. And that atmosphere is profoundly healthy for us, for our body, minds, our nervous system. So, in forest bathing, walk participants are invited to notice, breathe, slow down, and reconnect with living world around them. We make that through senses by seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, and simply feeling. So, in forest bathing, we like to say that forest is therapist and guides only open the door to the nature. So nature nature does the deeper work. So this practice was developed in Japan in early 80s of the last century as a reaction on very stressful life. At the time, Japan was modern, economically successful, and technological, and people there experience lots of stress, burnouts, and also loneliness. So Shinrin-yoku was created like a health practice and like answer on that problems that people there have. So Japanese Forestry Agency find a way how to invite people back to the nature, and not for recreation, but for healing and prevention and reconnection. They realize that when we are too much in our head, that we need to balance ourselves, and they go back to roots, back to our roots. So, and for me, forest bathing is deeply personal. So I came to this practice through my three deep disconnections in life. So first disconnection was war. when I was child, I was 12. In my country, there was a war, and I was a refugee child in Czech Republic. So I was separated from my parents for several months, and after several months, my parents came to Czech Republic to visit me, but only on one day. My parents have obligation to our country, and they allowed to see me one day. That is a long trip to see me. And when they leave, I was so devastating. My heart would break, and I was crying, and I was crying, laying in my bed. And one of my teacher came to me and said, "Let's go." And I want to stay in my bed and cry. But she said, no, you have to go. And we go to the forest. So I remember that teacher, she didn't say anything. Just we go to forest and we walk in silence. And I still remember that beautiful moment. How I felt in that forest. And I felt that my pain is smaller. And when you place your problem in something so big, so powerful, so magnificent, your problem seems to be smaller. And in the falling autumn leaves, I saw that endings are part of life, and I feel hope that after winter, spring will come again and bring new life. So the lesson then I learned was that we are part of so much greater than ourselves, and nature can comfort us, can hold our pain, and nature can give us hope. So that was the first time I felt nature as a healer. And the second disconnection was my illness. When I was a young girl, I struggled with eating disorder. I had anorexia. And after years of fighting with that illness, I was spent several months in hospital. And really, in that time, I experienced lots of misunderstanding and from the people around me every day, even often humiliation as well. So I remember one day, one of our therapist secretly took me and my colleagues, also girls, from hospital in nearby forest. He said, "It breaks my heart to see you, that you're lying here in this dark basement, while outside the world is so beautiful." And I remember that was spring forest, and we after months being inside, we came outside, and I remember that greenery and that fresh air, the light, and feeling that life is everything around me. So and in that forest, I felt a very strong desire to stay alive. My illness was very hard. And looking back, I truly believe that this forest saved my life. And the lesson I learned then was that nature does not judge us. That was very great for me. Nature does not ask us to be perfect. In nature, everything is place, everything is worthy, everything belongs, everything is beautiful, and nature is deeply inclusive for us. And third disconnection came during lockdown in that craziness. You remember, like many people, I felt separate from living world, and I need something deep. I need something that will reconnect me with nature and life in some conscious and intention way. And so I joined to online training with Forest Therapy Hub to become a forest bathing guide. And after many years, I found language for something that I already knew. Forest bathing gave me theory and structure and scientific and background for something that I had already experienced, that nature calms us, restores us, reconnects us, and reminds us that we belong to bigger sense of life.
That is so, so profound and so incredibly beautiful. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably your personal story. So those three really challenging experiences in your life, they all three revealed the same thing, is the healing power of the natural world when people really did not give you what you needed. They really failed to provide the support that you needed in those difficult moments. And there's so much wisdom that you shared in this one response, that the nature doesn't judge us. It's always present. It always holds us for whatever process that we need to go through. Everything belongs, everything is perfect, everything exactly the way it should be. And there's nothing more, I think, intelligent that the Mother Earth. And if we could only be conscious and aware of enough, like you, to continuously learn from that wisdom and intelligence. Thank you for that beautiful share.
Thank you for
I feel,
opportunity.
oh, thank you. I feel like today, collectively, we are experiencing a similar disconnect, everybody to a different degree. And I feel like we're in a crisis of disconnection from the natural world, our own bodies, because I think the planet Earth is really the extension of our body. We're made of the same materials, and we are disconnected from ourselves, from the planet, from stillness, from everything like living and non-living world around us. When you look at children today, in particular, both of us are educators, what do you see? What do you believe they're carrying that they were never meant to carry in the first place, and they were never really meant to carry alone without the support that adults could provide through the guidance that you received in those three circumstances in your life?
So I see that many children today carry too much noise, stimulation, too much screen time, too much expectation, social media, and too much pressure to perform. And I also think that today's children, they uh, have so much fear of apocalyptical future. We always, when we speak about Earth and nature, we speak about climate crisis, extinction, all that fear we present on them. And I think that nervous system are tired. And at the same time, we ask them to sit still in classrooms for hours. And if this is natural and this is unnatural for them. Human beings are not created to spend most of day disconnected from other world, and we are created to be in nature. Our bodies still need that human bodies needs for always movement, rhythm, silence, beauty, and connection. So we fill children's heads with so much information while forgetting that they are also need space for movement, their senses, and their heart. So we teach them about nature in closed classrooms, and I think that they need safe adults, someone who will gently open the door to back to life. And I think that nature gives that space where they don't have to prove anything. And in nature you can simply be. And I think that is very important for today's youth and children.
Absolutely. I could not agree more with every single word that you just said. And I think we see that more in traditional models of education. Like you said, the children are expected to be indoors for 7, 8 hours, body still, and the mind is filled with information. But learning is a holistic process. It's somatic, it's emotional. So all our parts need to be involved in the process. Now, there's a lot of science behind forest bathing. I know there's compelling and growing body of research behind it, like studies on cortisol levels, immune function, the nervous system, as you mentioned, on attention, emotional regulation. So all those things that our children struggle with, particularly attention and emotional regulation. So, what does science actually tell us about what happens inside a human being when they enter a natural environment with intention? And what do you find most significant in that research for the work you do with children?
So research on forest bathing shows many benefits, as I said, for physical, psychological, mental, and social health. It may help lower cortisol, as you said, blood pressure, pulse rate, and stress hormones. Some studies also show positive effects of immunity, mood, attention, or emotional regulation. So there is also research that shows that children who are grow up surrounded by more green space, they have larger volumes on gray and white matter in brain. And this is connected with better working memory and attention. And so nature is not just beautiful for children, it supports their brains, their body, their emotions, and their creativity. So I noticed that children in nature are very freer, and they play becomes more imaginative, more creative, and more alive. They're not learning about world around them. They experience the world with whole body and senses. And there are three concepts that I find especially important. The first is biophilia. It's that idea that human beings we have cravings for nature because there is something that is in our genes, in our DNA, and we are made for contact with nature. So second interesting is attention restoration theory from psychologist Rachel and Stephen Kaplan. And it explains that nature helps restore our tired attention. So when we are in nature, our brain it's relaxed, and when we focus on everyday task, our brain is tired, and when we focus in nature, our brain relaxed, and that is very interesting. And also through this stress reduction theory developed by researcher Roger Ulrich, it explained that exposure to natural environments reduce stress while urban environments induce it. So when we speak about science, remember the greatest science learned from nature. So now nature is the best teacher it was for Tesla, Steiner, Einstein, Newton, Leonardo, Darwin, all that great minds, they learn from nature. And I agree that nature is really good teacher for all of us, and especially for our youngest.
Yes, beautifully said. And the science is very clear. Right now, we need to put it into use, which is what Japanese did, and it was because of a need. We will get to that in a minute. I really want to ask you about the intentionality behind forest bathing. Now, is that enough just to be like just pass through when you are busy, you know, with your mind ruminating something that happened, let's say earlier, you know, some negative processing, some negative thoughts, or there needs to be an actual intentionality when you go into the forest and you need to be guided through that process. So what really becomes available for children who are guided in a very intentional way to connect with the greenery in the forest setting?
So we often take children to, for example, parks or forests, like we let them to gallery, and like you can see, this is beautiful, but this connection is very important because they have to feel that they are part of nature, not just visitor, but they are part of this nature, this living world. And I notice when children enters with intention to forest, they begins to listen, feel differently, and their inner world begins to expand, you know, and they start they in that beautiful place, and inner landscape also is bigger and free, and they feel free. And I noticed that they start see world with wide open eyes, and they become amazed, curious, and incredibly creative. And I have that experience that I took very hard children with some issues, and they also was so beautiful in nature, and nature amazed them, and they really have focus they don't have in the classrooms, and really be there, be here and now. It's very powerful. And also our participants in forest bathing, they connect with nature, with senses. And when you feel, when you smell the flower, when you hear the sounds of the birds, you can't think about yesterday and make plans for tomorrow. You just are in that moment, and that is very important.
That is incredible. As I'm listening to you, I feel like this is the solution for attention deficit disorder. This can potentially be one of the healthiest solutions for kids who are on the spectrum for attention deficit. Those who struggle with paying attention, aggression, right? Because it just naturally recalibrates their nervous system. And like you said, you are in the moment, you're here and now, like nothing distracts you. You can worry about the future. You're not ruminating the past. You're just present. You just are. And it really sparks curiosity, the sense of awe, which is really, really healthy in every which way. That's just incredibly amazing. And I think understanding all of that, Japan over time, they wove forest bathing into the fabric of their schools. So it wasn't just a response to stressed out adults, but they actually intentionally brought it into the schools and into the public health system. So what did they understand? I think that's everything that you just said. I think that they understood, but if there's anything else, I'm inviting you to share. And what has produced like forest bathing in the school system, integrated in a very intentional way, what has it produced over the generations? I wonder if we have any data on that. The kids who started maybe forest bathing in the 80s and 90s, what has it changed the generations that we have now, like young adults that they have become?
So I don't have the exact data, I have to admit, but I know that they offer different activities in nature for different stage of life. They have this maternity programs, and they have this healthy program for seniors, for also nature pedagogics for the youngest, and nature adventure, and also this forest bathing or Shinrin-yoku practice. And I think that they understand that nature is not only beautiful, that is preventive medicine for all, from early childhood to practically to death, and that is very powerful, that this is public health practice. I think that it's very revolutionary. We all have this medicine system. It's also everything is give the medicine or cut the body, and this is something that is free, that is so effective. And I think that they give the language something that is ancient. We all understand that human needs nature to stay balanced, and they find a way how to bring that in that modern rushy life again. So I really think that is very revolutionary, and I'm glad that glad to me that this in whole world we trying to incorporate in our education, and also tourism, and also in public health practices.
You're definitely doing an incredible job with this in Croatia, that has its own relationship with the natural world, its own wisdom about land and belonging and the human body in the nature. I'm curious, Tanya, how has your cultural inheritance shaped the way you practice and teach this work? I think I'm curious, what is the Croatian or maybe even the Czech way, whichever culture influenced you more in the way you do this work, you practice yourself and you bring it to others, particularly to young people?
So, in my town, Daruvar, in Croatia, we have very, very long tradition of healing through nature. This is area where ancient tribe Yasi live, and those names mean healers. So, especially in the forest where I guide forest bathing walks, there is found altars to god Silvanos, who was a Roman god of forests. So also that forest nymphas was there showed. So for centuries, people in my town found that nature and thermal water and healing mud, it's something that is useful for recuperation. And also we find some old photographs that shows that there was also tradition of air baths. That was the language 200, I don't know, on the 1 century ago. And people trust that fresh air, light, and the natural environment, it support health. So forest bathing helped me to realize that it's not only a Japanese practice, it's a global topic. And every culture, every community, and every landscape has its own way to remembering that these healing relationships between human and nature. And I'm a Czech in Croatia, so I'm Czech minority, and we are very connected to our land, and because my ancestors come because of land, and for my tradition and community and language, and also to belonging. And I think that that feeling belong to some part of the world is also powerful. And you know, it's important to feeling that we feel that belonging to our land, also to community, and also to our ancestors, and also to descendants. And then we feel that this place give us something larger than ourselves and just only our life as individual.
That is amazing. You're speaking to that generational responsibility, right? The
Yeah.
connection and the wisdom that travels through generations, and the part that the natural world plays in all of that. And I've been to Daruvar, incredibly beautiful place, and I'm forever grateful for my Fulbright assignment. Otherwise, I would have never met you, and I don't know, I would have probably never visited Daruvar, maybe Croatia, but not Daruvar. So I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to meet the amazing, very kind and grounded, like you can feel the groundedness of people in Daruvar. And I think largely it is because of the connection with the nature that actually helps build healthy relationships with each other, because you understand the depth and you're fully present. And that was an incredible experience that I will never forget and will always be very grateful for. Now, Tanya, you hold an elected office in Daruvar, and you carry the weight of civic responsibility, of policy, of representing a community whose identity and belonging are always at stake. You just mentioned that you represent a Czech minority, and yet you have not severed yourself from the natural world to do that work, because sometimes the kind of the civic duty can be viewed as very separate, from just being this connection with the natural world, taking the time for contemplation, for stillness, and everything else that we're discussing today. So I'm curious, what would you say to a public official or a civic leader who believes that a deep relationship with nature might be incompatible with the demands of a public life?
So for me, as really woman in politics with all that challenges that we have in our work.
Mhm.
I don't know how it's in your country, but in Croatia and all this region is very hard to be in politics.
Mm.
And I would say that for me, a deeper connection with nature is necessary. So if we want to make a good decision for people, we must be grounded and connected to life. And really, nature teaches humility, patience, interdependence, and responsibility. And
Mhm.
they are also good qualities of good leadership. So for me, I think that is a very when I don't know how to make a good decision. I'm going to walk to forest. I give my hand to this ground, and when you feel grounded, you are stronger, and you can make better decision. And we make decision almost every day. And when it's something that is so grounded, I think that the quality of this decision is better. And I also think that this is highest aim of modern education too, and also as public service. That we should not only gain more knowledge, but we have to cultivate that sensitivity to life in
Mm.
every aspect.
Mm. So
And nature
beautifully
gives us.
said. Yes. You're speaking about it's not about the information, because I feel like we give a lot of information, but I think a
Yes.
lot of people, especially youth, they're starving for wisdom. And the connection, I think, with nature just gives you that wisdom. It doesn't even come oftentimes from people around you. It really comes from nature if you know how to be still, be sensitive and just, attune with it and be able to receive the guidance that comes from it. I think another very, very important point that you're speaking to is how important this practice is for leaders, especially on civic duty, who make decisions that impact lives of many. And if we make those decisions from stress, from depletion, right, from burnout, then the impact is very different versus if we make those decisions from this grounded knowing and presence. Thank you so much for speaking so beautifully to that. I'm just wondering how we can, because being in politics is difficult everywhere, how we can really cultivate this understanding and the authentic need for this practice among politicians. And I think if we could do that, we would be all living in a completely different world now. I think you would probably agree with that.
Yes, I will, but I'm still like Alice in Wonderland. I have to admit that when I say that I'm going to forest to make a decision, that sounds weird, but I think that time will show up that is the best possible way to make good decision.
There's so much wisdom in it, and yeah, and it takes a lot of consciousness to realize this is my practice. And I know I do that when I need to develop, let's say, content, and sometimes you get this, like writer's block, as they call it, right? So the creativity is not flowing. Walking, even if it's in the park, barefoot in a park,
Yeah.
makes all the difference. I come back with a clear head and I know exactly what I need to do next. So very, very important. Thank you for sharing. As I'm listening to Tanya, I'm thinking of all the families that I work with who raise children in big cities like Los Angeles, where I live, in apartments, in concrete buildings. Rhythm is very different from a rhythm of the natural world. It moves too fast. They rarely have time to rest. So everything is on the go, high levels of stress. And I feel like if I bring this to those families, I will say, well, this all sounds beautiful, but how do I make it real as a mother of three, for example, in an urban neighborhood surrounded with a concrete jungle? How do I really find that consistent way of implementing this practice. And I know Daruvar predispositioned kind of more in that sense because forest is just part of the landscape. But I don't know if you have experience or if you have any suggestions, any recommendations for people in urban settings, how they can make this practice real for themselves.
So nature connections does not always require a forest, of course, and sometimes a reconnection begins with something as simple as mindful cup of herbal tea. We are also nature, so when you reconnect with someone else, it's also when you do that in mindful and intention way, it also can be good for us. And you can begin with one plant. You can use essential oils. You can you can tell stories about nature connection. And maybe you can go with your family to gallery and spend time surrounded by paintings of landscapes. So you can decorate your home with photographs or paintings or with images or nature. And you can bring natural objects to your home, stones, branches, shells, and leaves. And I remember my son when they was young, they loves collect stones and branches, and everywhere in house was branches and stones, sticks, and you can observe sky and clouds, maybe if it's possible. You have ocean also, that blue space also mirroring. We have these mirror neurons in ourselves, and we are mirroring what we look at. And when we look at that oceans is when it's still, and in also in moment, we also relax ourselves. And so we can grow herbs on our balcony, touch the soil, open the window to feel air, because we breathe something that nature produces. So we have that reciprocity with nature. So for children, it can be very simple. Create a small nature corner in your home or in classroom. Let them collect natural treasures and watch insects without disturbing. And if we want more nature around us, or we can also become active in our communities. We can start small initiatives in our neighborhoods. We can ask for more trees, for more parks, school gardens, community gardens, and we can support some, I don't know, initiative, a green initiative, eco initiative. And I have to say, I forget to say that science give us a useful guide. So research suggests that 20 to 30 minutes in nature can significantly reduce stress, because after 20 minutes in nature, our cortisol, hormone of stress, these cortisol levels drops. So also another great study found that people who spend at least 2 hours a week in nature report better health and well-being. So maybe we don't have time for a week, but maybe on weekends we can go in nearby forest or nearby beach and spend minimum 2 hours in nature, and that will be very beneficial for all weeks along.
That is
Start small
incredible.
and be
Yes, you provided so many amazing entry points into this type of connection with the natural world, like herbal tea or watching the sky. I don't think we oftentimes think of it. It's more like I don't want the parents or educators to feel like I need to go on a vacation to be able to do this, or I need some sort of a curriculum to be handed to me to be able to do this. Those are small daily living choices that we can make. And that's exactly what we model for our children, because I strongly believe that our children learn what we live. and they really inherit what we embody. Sometimes it's not what we even intend or try to teach. It's by who we are being in their presence, and they learn to live like us. So for us to make the small conscious choices on a daily basis with what's available to us, the sky is available to all of us, right? And picking up leaves somewhere near your building is available to all of us. So just to start thinking in those micro moments of daily life choices is really, really powerful. So thank you for presenting in such a beautiful and accessible way, I would say. I'm really curious, Tanya, now that we're speaking what the adults model and how important that is. I feel like there's a difference between taking a child outside, because I see sometimes parents taking their kids to parks while they're on the phone, or sometimes the child, if they're old enough to have their own phone, they're also on their phone. But there's a difference between, I think, going outside and initiating them into a relationship with the living world. So I'm curious, what does that initiation look like, and what is the adult's role in that?
Uh, so I think that we are always models for our children, and they look at us how we behave. So I think that they don't need perfection; they need safe adults who will be present with them and slow down and wonder with them. I think that is very important. And sometimes it's important just go with them and open that space for them. As you remember, my teacher Mirjana in Czech Republic, when I was in therapist Darko, who just took us to this forest and hold space and hold safety. And I think it's very important that children feel in nature that they are part of the nature. And as I said, today too many children learn about nature through a language of crisis, climate change, destruction, pollution, extinction. Of course, they need to know the truth, but if knowledge is rooted in fear and scarcity, it's not good. And nature is not something angry, something that will punish them for mistakes of previous generation. And when you operate from the fear state, that you're afraid, and you come back and you hide. When you knew that you have that connection with nature, you love nature and you want to protect nature, and that is also uh, important. So we have to ask what inner world we are creating for our children's, and with their relationships with Earth. And it's that guilt, pessimism, catastrophe, or it's reconnection, love, and it's something that we are part of.
I had a podcast interview maybe a couple of months ago around Earth Day, which is late April, and we were really discussing exactly what you are now describing. The disconnection from the natural world gives us the permission to mistreat it. And I think all the catastrophizing, especially in the ecological sense, instead of that, if we would start feeling that we are part of it, that our body and the earth are not any different, and really reestablish that connection, I think we would be treating the natural world in a very different way, and that would create a completely different outcomes, not only for ourselves, but also for generations to come. And I think our descendants have a right for a healthy and vibrant planet, just like our ancestors had. And I think as we go down the generations, every next generation receives a planet that is more damaged. And I think it's in our power to reverse it if we teach our children that connection is just our foundation, and really treat it that way. Thank you for that beautiful response.
I agree with you.
Mm. And I think, I work a lot with educators, and there is a lot of emphasis on academics, academic achievement,
Mhm.
academic performance. And I think that's why our children are in the rooms, being just loaded with this information and knowledge. And a lot of it does not integrate. They have a hard time metabolizing, retaining it. There's a lot of issues with content retention, as we're speaking about as educators. And I'm really curious as I'm listening to you, if educators understood that a simple practice like this that really helps the nervous system regulate, become present, and really opens the mental capacities that in a stressed out state, they're not available to those children. I wondered the impact on academics, like on academic outcomes and student performance, if we intentionally implemented forest bathing in whatever form is accessible, let's say in an urban setting like Los Angeles. I'm really curious how that would shift the learning and the actual achievement that we're so focused on. I'm curious what you have to say and what does it look like in Croatia, in Daruvar, if you have any information around that.
So I think it's same. It's very similar in all this Western world, and uh, and children really does need only information. They show schools often train the mind, but we don't have to forget about the body and our senses, and of course our heart. I remember your keynote speak with in on our festival, and you speak about that heart-centered education, and also it's very important. And nature brings these parts back together. When you're in nature, you use your body, your senses, your heart, and your heart opens in creativity, and with all your being, you accept that world around you and information in different way. And I think that we are so focused on success, and what is success is also, we have to also reimagine what means successful human beings. And I think that we also have in mind that we should create a sensitive human beings, people who can feel life on basics and respect life and in future protect life. I think that is very important.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. Tanya, towards the end of our episodes, I usually ask the traditional question, which is the potentiality question, as the podcast, explains it, the podcast title, I should say. And usually it's the large scale impact of the topic that we're discussing. So I want to ask you, what do you believe is at stake? Not just for children, but for our collective human story for generations to come, if we do not find our way back into the right relationship with the natural world.
So we are created for nature, and nature unlocks our potential. That is really as that. So Homo sapiens evolved in natural environments hundreds of thousands of years ago, and our body, we have biology as of nomads and as a hunter-gatherer, a body made for movement and direct contact with with living world. And when we lose that relationships with nature, we lose that contact with ourselves. And when we stop feeling like there will be easier to damage life. And so for me, this topic of forest bathing is not just some relaxation. It's a process in which we remember who we exactly are. And I think that is very important today, and the important task of education system, that we teach children about these relationships. We have to make to fall in them, in earth again, and because not just this is not just because their knowledge, it's connection. This is topic of relationships. and then it's even the question of our survival.
Yes, that is
So
absolutely true.
now I feel I sound like with a language of scarcity, but in some future, as I said, if children see nature only as a problem, crisis, or catastrophe, but if we allow them that they nature experience as something alive, beautiful, generous, and deeply connect to them, they will want to protect them, and we protect what we love. And I think that is some bigger, and that is very important for our future, like as species in world.
And I think that's absolutely true, although it may sound pessimistic, but it's not. You're actually bringing awareness to the importance of this and really speaking to the responsibility that we have, both as parents and especially as educators. There's so much that we can do to integrate in our even school day, even in a traditional school day. There's just so much. And I think that awareness is important for us to know that I am responsible for the human stories that I'm writing, the way I teach the children in my class, and understanding the importance of that connection with the natural world, how it shapes from their neurophysiology to relationships to their health, and the contribution that they will make from the mindset and the belief system that they develop as a result of it, the kind of a human that they will become, and the impact, the ripple effect that they will create, right? It's not only just individual child, which is super important, but also what that child will then bring into the world, right? And so that awareness really almost creates that urgency that I, as an educator, have that power, and I need to fully exercise it to do what's right for those children and for the world that they will be creating. So thank you so much for just that honest expression of the importance of this type of a practice in whatever form it might take, depending on the setting, the context that every educator or parent is in. I want to thank you for this insightful, rich, and I think very informative dialogue, because I feel like a big part of my audience probably does not know about this practice. And I'm curious, Tanya, if there's anything that you would like to add or to share that maybe I did not ask about.
But I will just repeat that call to action. So I would highlight that 20 to 30 minutes a day, if you are, if it's possible for you, let's go outside. If not possible, we use let's go during the weekends or during the holidays. Don't stay inside. Outside is so beautiful, and nature can give us too much, and don't cut ourselves from that strength and beauty, and our home that is in our genes and in our DNA. So let's go outside.
That's exactly how I feel. It's homecoming. It's return
Yeah.
to yourself and to the origins, to your roots. Thank you so much. Now, Tanya, if our listeners or viewers want to learn more about this Japanese practice of forest bathing, or if they want to connect with you and ask some questions, what are some directions that you can give them? Maybe some websites that they can explore, and maybe some contact that they can reach out to you if you're willing to further help them understand what this practice is all about.
There is lots of information on internet, forest bathing. When you write just in Google forest bathing or Shinrin-yoku, there will lots of information. And if I so maybe you can start with also with interesting books, that classic like Richard Sloan, The Last Child in the Woods. It's very interesting. I have always here with me. And also the Nature Fix Florence Williams, I think it's, and also I like, especially for education and children, it's Sharing the Nature of Joseph Cornell, I think. And if you have any question, you can connect with me. My name is Tanja Novotni Golubić. I am on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I don't have my website, and I hope that in future I will do much more and harder work with this natural-based connection. That is some plans in future. Now I'm a politician and I'm so busy, but I hope that I will do more about this topic, and I think it's important and is necessary.
Thank you so, so much. And I would love to collaborate with you on that, on the ways that we can bring it into more urban settings, because I think it's even more needed in places like Los Angeles. I also want to let our audience know that everything that Tanya just shared will be in the description box below this video. Thank you so much for sharing all those resources. Tanya, I can't say enough to express my gratitude for this last hour spent together. It's always a joy learning from you. In the practice of wellness, I think of holistic well-being and just generational wealth that you're creating in many different ways through this practice by bringing it to youth, to children, to everybody that, comes across your path. And I am beyond grateful that our paths crossed and we get to do this episode right now and many other collaborations, I hope, in the future. Thank you for being you. Thank you for embodying the type of a politician that I think every politician should be. Thank you so much for this incredible dialogue.
Thank you, and it was nice to see you and speak with you again. And hello to all your listeners and my listeners too.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you. And thank you for being with us today. I am grateful for each one of you tuning in to today's episode, and I sincerely hope you find it insightful and valuable. Please remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet to never miss an episode. I will see you next time.